I have served the imperial household of HFY for 31 years. I have managed the wardrobe of 3 emperors, arranged the seating of 7 state banquets, and once talked a visiting dignitary out of declaring a blood feud over a misplaced napkin. I have, in other words, seen most things. I do not say this to boast. I say it because you should understand the weight of what I mean when I tell you that I had never, before that evening in the prince's nursery wing, seen anything like Corvin Haas. He was not supposed to be there at all. The galley supervisor had assigned him to the nursery-level scullery as a disciplinary posting. He had arrived late to a shift, offered an explanation she found insufficient, and been sent upstairs to clean the service alcoves and haul evening meal remnants back to the composting stores. It was the lowest posting in the palace kitchen rotation. Corvin Haas, 32 days into a 6-month contract as a palace kitchen hand, had thus become, on the 47th day since the Empress died, the least significant person on the nursery floor. The Empress Saravel had died of a vascular event in her sleep. The Emperor had not slept in his own chambers since, and the young prince, Tovin, 7 years old, now the heir, had not eaten, not properly. A few bites of something pale and sweet on the 3rd day, a half-cup of broth on the 9th. After that, nothing of substance. The imperial nutritionist had tried. She was a decorated specialist from the Velhari Institute, and she brought charts. The charts did not help. The court physician prepared a tonic that would stimulate the boy's appetite through a sequence of compounds, the details of which I will spare you. Tovin looked at the glass and looked away. 4 nannies had tried in succession. The first brought his favorite foods. He ate 2 wafers and stopped responding to her entirely. The second brought games and distraction. He played, but did not eat. The third sang. The fourth read aloud from his favorite picture histories of the old fleet expeditions. Neither of them could reach him. The boy sat on the floor of his nursery, with his back against the foot of his bed, and looked at the middle distance, and the empire could not make him hungry. I had stood in that doorway myself. He was not ill. He was not defiant. He was simply somewhere else. Some interior place the Empress had once been able to reach, and which, now that she was gone, had no door anyone could find. I was reviewing linens in the East Service corridor when Corvin Haas came through, carrying the remnant bins. He was unremarkable in every visible sense. A big man, not tall but broad, with the kind of hands that have been doing manual work since early adulthood, thick through the knuckles, calloused across the palms. He wore the standard kitchen staff coverall, faintly gray at the elbows. He did not look like a man doing a punishment posting. He looked like a man who had been asked to move some bins and intended to move them without making a production of it. He did not notice me. I noticed him only because he paused outside the nursery. The door was ajar. Corvin set his bins down in the corridor, very quietly, the way a person sets something down when they are trying not to startle an animal. He looked through the gap for a moment. Then he reached into the small carry satchel he had over one shoulder, a personal bag, not palace issue, and took out a covered bowl. I should have stopped him. He was a kitchen hand on a scullery posting. He had no business entering the nursery. Protocol was unambiguous on the question of who was permitted unsupervised access to the imperial heir. I should have called out, or stepped forward, or said his name. I did not. Perhaps it was that he moved with such quietness. Perhaps it was that he had not hesitated the way a man hesitates when he is thinking about whether he ought to do something. He simply did it, which has its own kind of authority. Perhaps, after 47 days of watching the Empire's best efforts accomplish nothing, I was willing to see what a kitchen hand with a bowl could do. He went in. I moved to where I could see through the gap without being seen. Tovin was where he always was, on the floor, back against the foot of the bed, knees drawn up, looking at nothing. He did not look up when Corvin came in. Corvin did not announce himself. He did not bow, or say the prince's name, or perform any of the small ceremonies that everyone else had begun with, and which Tovin had learned to recognize as the opening move of someone who wanted something from him. Corvin simply sat down on the floor. Not near the boy, not close enough to crowd him. He sat perhaps 4 handspans away, back against the side of the bed the same as Tovin, and set the bowl on the floor between them. It was a plain bowl, unglazed, the kind the galley staff used for their own meals during shift. The contents were a thick root stew, I could smell it from the corridor, the sort of dense, simple thing you make when you want something warm and filling and are not cooking for anyone but yourself. He did not offer it to the boy. He did not slide it toward him or gesture at it or say a word about it. He just set it there, between them, picked up his own spoon from his satchel, and began to eat from it himself. Tovin watched him. I watched Tovin watch him. It took perhaps 3 minutes. Then, without any particular decision visible on his face, Tovin reached over and pulled the bowl slightly toward himself and ate a spoonful. Then another. Corvin did not look at him. He looked at the middle distance, with the expression of a man who was simply eating his supper and had nowhere pressing to be. They finished the bowl between them. When it was empty, Corvin sat for another moment, then said, quietly and without preamble, "My boy's about your age. He eats like you're going to take the bowl away if he slows down." He did not explain who his boy was, or where he was, or why he was not there. He said it the way you say something to yourself when a silence has gone on long enough that one ordinary sentence makes a reasonable companion for it. Tovin did not answer, but he did not look away either. I became aware then of a third presence. I looked to my right, along the service corridor, and saw the Emperor. He had come without attendants. He was in the plainest robe I had seen him wear in years, the kind a man puts on in his own rooms when there is no one to see him. He stood very still, close enough to the doorway to see what I had seen, far enough back that the light did not carry him into the room. His face was composed in the way that faces compose themselves when the person wearing them is choosing not to let anything show, and not entirely succeeding. He watched for perhaps a minute. Then he turned, without a word, and walked back the way he had come. I did not speak to the Emperor that night, or the next morning. His appointments were rearranged without inquiry, as one does. What I did, at the first reasonable opportunity, was review Corvin Haas's assignment roster. Someone, and it was not me, though I could not have said I objected, had moved his posting. The disciplinary scullery rotation had been quietly removed. In its place was a permanent assignment, nursery-level service, day rotation, effective immediately, with a notation that simply read, "Household reassignment, no further review required." There was no signature. There did not need to be. I know something of Corvin's situation. It is my function to know these things. He has a son on one of the outer colony stations, a boy of 8 who he sees on alternating leave rotations. He does not speak of this at work. On the evening he sat on the floor of the nursery and shared a bowl of root stew with the heir to the Sarevhal Empire. He was probably thinking about that boy, in the way fathers think about their absent children when they are sitting beside someone else's. The prince eats now. Not every meal is easy, and grief does not resolve on anyone's schedule but its own. But Tovin eats. And every evening, on the nursery floor, there is a plain, unglazed bowl set between two people who sit a comfortable distance apart and look, for a while, at the same patch of nothing. One of them is the heir to an empire. The other is a man who came to Sarevhal Palace for 6 months contract pay and the chance to send money home, to clean pots. I have served this household for 31 years. I have seen most things. I had not seen that.